We're here on location with Doug Upchurch of White Bear Fibers here in his yarn dyeing studio. And I'll give you a link to Doug's website in the video description below the video and also on my website. Now, Doug makes these beautiful yarn colors and he also teaches yarn dyeing workshops all over Texas. And I will forever have the pleasure of saying that I taught Doug to knit a few years ago, and he's really taken that and run with it to a whole new level of creativity with the whole yarn dyeing business. And this is great for me because I want this sweater to look a certain way, and I'm very lucky to have a friend who's an expert at this. So we have the dyes prepared, and we have the sweater that's been soaking in the acid. Doug's going to tell us a little bit about the dyes that we're using here today.
Great. So thanks, Stacy. It's good to have you here. What we're using is an acid dye solution. It's one of the safest dyes that you can use. The only rules are you have to have a mask when you're working with the powder, and you don't want to use anything that you would use for food or for drink, for kitchen. So it's got to be dedicated to the dyeing process. What we've done so far is we've actually taken the sweater that's the finished object that I have here. We've actually soaked it in a solution of food-grade citric acid, about a tablespoon, and a bucket of water for about 30 minutes. And so when we take it out of the water, we squeeze it until it's damp but not dripping. You want to just kind of feel how that still got some of the heft
heavy,
of the water,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So what we're going to do then is we're going to focus on doing an ombre dye pattern today, right? So
yeah, it's dark at the bottom and light as it goes up.
Great.
That's my idea for my sweater.
Okay, so what we're going to do to create that is we're actually going to start with a big bucket of water, just plain water, and then we're going to put a little bit of the dye in, soak all of the sweater in it, so we get a really light color.
Over the whole thing.
Over the whole thing.
Right.
After that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a little more dye and only go up part way. Then a little more dye, so we get a little darker, a little more part way, a little less part way, and keep going until we have just the last little bit, which will have the darkest intensity. So that's the process that we're going to go through.
Okay, yeah, I want to say one thing. We're using acid dyes here, but the technique that we're demonstrating, or that he's going to show us how to do, can be used with whatever dye you're using, you know, Kool-Aid and other kitchen-safe dyes, and I'll give you some ideas that Doug will help me with, give you some ideas for other dyes that you can use, but the process of actually getting the ombre effect is going to be the same.
Absolutely, and the whole technique is really the same. I mean, anything you dye, whether it's yarn or a finished object, you get it soaked in some kind of a solution, maybe just water if it's Kool-Aid, for example. You create the dyes, you apply the dyes, and then you heat set the dyes.
Right.
And we'll do that in a little bit.
Okay, have you ever dyed a garment before, or is this?
This is the first one.
It was
really
my
excited.
idea. Yes.
You're my teacher again.
Oh, always.
I know. Okay, so you ready to get started?
Yes, I'm totally excited. Oh, wait, not yet.
Oh yeah, let's move that.
Let me move
The customers that are getting those yarns next week will be really appreciative.
They don't want my green dye on there.
So we're basically taking a lot of water because we really want to have this solution be very diluted. So it's about 2 inches of water in the bottom of this tub. And this is a full strength dye. We use 1 teaspoon of dye powder per pint of water. So what we're just going to pour in I'm going to go 2 marks on this, or 1 mark on this, because I just wanted a light.
We're going to test this with the spatula.
That's right. So we're going to mix it up to get it all mixed in. This ensures kind of an even application of the dye to the garment. So we want to make sure that happens first. And then I definitely want to, each time we do this, to test it with a strip of paper towel so we can kind of be sure that we're getting kind of a good consistency. And it's going to be really hard to see on camera, I think, but
it's very light green.
It's a very light green, which is what we want. Almost undetectable, probably. So does that look okay to you? Okay. So what we're going to do is, since we're not too concerned at this point about the garment being having the dye in a certain place, we're going to go ahead and just apply the whole thing. But I do want to make sure I know where my top of the garment is, the collar.
The shoulders, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just place it in. And the dye applies really quickly. So once we just get it in there.
Have you used Kool-Aid before?
I've not used Kool-Aid before.
I wonder if it. Just last night I was teaching a knitting class and one of the gals had some yarn that she dyed with black cherry Kool-Aid,
Oh, wow.
which was, compared to the other colors of Kool-Aid, it's so fluorescent. Black cherry was a nice mellow color. Okay, what do you want me to do?
So what I want you to do is you're going to help me as we bring this out, we're going to squeeze it. Now this is superwash yarn that we've used, so that's important, but we still want to be gentle to not, really mess with the block of the sweater. So we're just going to kind of try to get as much of the water. Your yarn is like a sponge, so when you're getting water, in order to get more dye into it, we have to get the excess water out, okay?
Okay, gosh, this water is almost clear now.
Yeah.
It soaked it all up.
So does that look good? You're
Yes,
kind of
I love
light
it,
green?
love it.
All right, so this is gonna
Even
be
if we
just a-
stopped right now, I love that. Okay, so we've dyed the whole sweater. We're ready to start with the next darker color.
So what we did already is we took just 2 marks of the dye. We filled this up with 2 inches of water. We put in about 2 marks of the dye on the jar. I just use these marks on the sides of the jar to kind of help me keep measure and keep things kind of clear. Just put the whole sweater in, dunked it in, and actually squeezed out the excess dye so that it could take more dye, and we're ready to go to the next layer down. Now
This water is almost clear now. It's soaked up all the dye from it.
Now this is an important part of the process when you're beginning this part of the ombre, because you need to be able to know where the top of your garment is and what part you don't want to have dye applied. So Stacy, let's just take a look. If this is top to bottom, I'm thinking probably, and we're going to do 5 dips today, right? So I'm thinking we want to keep this part out. Does that seem about right?
We only want to go up to like, oh wait, no, we're doing it this way.
Yeah, this is the top.
Yes, just keep, just like that much out for this.
Okay.
We want this to stay light, and we're going to keep getting darker. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to
let you
is
hold
that the
that.
bottom of the sleeves are going to be the same color as the hip. I think
Exactly.
That's so cool. Okay, so I hang on.
I'm going to let you hold this.
Okay.
And I'm going to mix the next set of dye, which is going to be just 1 more mark darker. So we're going to add actually the 2 that we added before, but we're now going to go up to 3. And the reason we're adding a little more is because we want to actually be able to, the first dye exhausted into the fiber already. That's why, as Stacy said, the water was almost clear. So we're going to mix it up again. There's still plenty of water, so we're good there. And we're going to actually test it in the paper towel again, just like we did the first time. We can see it's just, again, a little bit darker than the first one, not much. It's almost impossible to see because we're going such a light shade, but let's go ahead and try. By the way, one tip, you can always go darker. So if you go too light the first time, you can always come back and add more dye. So let's
It's
go
like
ahead
a haircut.
hold on to the part we don't want to apply the dye
That's
to.
where you handed it to
Yep.
me, so.
Just lay it in. And we'll just get it in there and squeeze it around so that the dye gets just where we want it to be. Okay, and now what we're going to do is again, we're going to lift the dye out, lift the garment out rather, and I'm going to just gently kind of squeeze the excess water and dye.
It didn't
out of-
exhaust it as much this time.
It didn't. And that's okay though. I think what we're going to see is
There is a
take a look,
difference.
there's a definite difference just barely beginning in that color. So now we want to take the
Measure
next
down.
section.
So here?
I think so, because we've got 3 more to go after that. We're going to add some more in. This time I'm going to go 4, which is pretty much the whole thing actually. Mix it up.
It's looking much darker now.
Yeah. Again, I want to test it before I put the garment in, especially when you're working with a finished object. You want to make sure you do that.
I can really see that this time.
See a bit of a difference? This is the middle section. Since we're doing 5, this is the middle section, so you're going to want a little bit more color to
Yeah.
start to show up. So let's go ahead and dip that hole back in. Great. And I'm just making sure that the dye powder and the water mixture kind of gets into the fibers. So that's what
And
I'm doing
I'm
with
just
my
making
hands.
sure that the part we don't want to dye stays out of the water.
Again, just squeezing the water out. Again, let's take a look. It's beautiful, actually. You can start to really see the shading, right?
cool! And we have 2 more to go now?
Yep, so let's take a look at where you want the next section.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, I think so. Gonna get our next jar of dye. And I'm gonna go with about half of this jar because we're wanting to get a little bit more darker now as we go, so.
This is exciting.
Again, mix it up. Always make sure your dye gets mixed because sometimes the fiber can take it in splotches if you don't do that. So that's just a little tip. All right.
Wow.
And now we're really starting to see the green. This is a color that is called pistachio. So this is a light green anyway, but it's going to be a little bit darker than we had before. We're ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. And let's we get it all down over there. Yep. Let's pull it up.
Wow!
All right. Very good.
Go ahead and mark my spot now. Where's
I think you're going to go here probably, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the other half of that jar, and I'm going to go with another half of this jar of the other dye. So we're actually getting almost a full jar of dye in there.
It's almost black now. Oh, this is so cool.
Okay, we'll test it. And you can really see the darkness in this one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's go.
I'm having a little bit. Okay, there we go.
There we go. All right, let's bring it out. All right. And what I want to do, actually I got a little bit extra dye in here, so let me just wipe this off. It's always good to have an extra tub to kind of just set your garment into so you can get it out of the way.
Oh my, that's so cool!
Couple of key things. The dye is not set at this point, so you still don't want to have your lighter sections touching your darker, but you can already see how the colors are kind of gradating up the sweater. Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So next step is to wrap it and heat set it. So
We're gonna do that.
let's do that
here?
now.
Okay, I'll hold this. Okay, we've finished the dyeing process and we have the saran wrap set out on these 2 cookie sheets. And tell us what we're doing here.
Well, part of the process when you're dyeing different colors, if this was all one color, one consistency, we could just take it, wrap it up, put it in a bowl, and put it in the microwave to heat set. But because we have different colors, we don't want the dark sections of the garment to touch the light because the dye is not set yet.
So the dark could actually like color the light.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're taking the saran wrap, we're actually going to just kind of wrap it like almost like a sausage or a jelly roll in this case with this big sweater.
I'm trying to copy what you're doing.
Yep. And we're just going to kind of create a pocket that basically will allow the moisture that's still in the garment to kind of steam. And by doing that, we can actually just kind of
Look at that.
wrap it up. And so we've got our little sweater sandwich or sweater jelly roll that we'll set inside here.
So with the dye that we're using here, how long is that going to heat set?
Well, any dye you use has to be heat set. So just check with your dyeing process. For acid dyes, what we're going to do is, I have to say it varies. It depends on the colors you're using, and it's a bit of trial and error. Typically, if it's not got a lot of dye in it, about 5 minutes should be fine. If it does, about 10 minutes. If you're using a non-superwash yarn, do it in 2-minute increments and let it cool so it doesn't felt. That's really an important, important tip.
This is superwash, so it's not going to
This is
felt.
superwash, so we're golden.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so we'll put it in the microwave, take it out, and once it's out, it's ready to be air dried, and then you will want to rinse it one final time. That rinse is to get out any remaining dye that hasn't set, any soap, and then you can block it.
Okay, that's the thing that I will do. I'll take over at that point and get my blocking board out and set the sweater out and use my tape measure to make sure the sweater is exactly the size it should be. Turn on the ceiling fan in that room and let this dry thoroughly, and I'll do all that at home.
Sounds perfect.
Well, thank you, Doug. This was really fun. I'm so excited to see the finished sweater.
My pleasure. I really had a blast. Thanks, you guys.